Yeah, no, both these quarterbacks, I think they actually played kind of the same game, which is a good thing, right? They were both very efficient.
Yep.
They both made every pass that was asked of them and then some, right? They were well above average on efficiency. The game just came down to two huge mistakes for the Lions, right? Jared Goff threw that bad pick six, his first interception in almost 400 pass attempts. And then David Montgomery had that really bad fumble. If you take those two plays out of it, these teams played almost identical. They were both really efficient. Both quarterbacks moved the ball. Both teams had a pretty solid run game. But that fumble was so bad. That pick six was so bad. But both these teams, I think, have a cause for optimism, right? They're both sort of borderline NFC contenders. They both showed that when things go well, they can play in a shootout, and just the first team to make a mistake loses. Unfortunately, today, that was the Lions, but it just as easily could have gone the other way. A lot to be optimistic about for both teams.
Oh, 100%. And Detroit, too, got a little banged up during this game. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Amon-Ra, David Montgomery left. Like, hopefully nothing serious. A couple of those guys did come back and play. But Detroit was banged up throughout this as well as Seattle was with the offensive line. One thing that's concerning me about the Lions a little bit is we know the offense is going to be firing on all cylinders. As long as they stay healthy, Jared Goff looks really good. But defensively, I'm a little concerned because the defensive line right now, they only sacked Geno once today with all the backups in. No sacks versus Mahomes. We understand he's a scrambler. He's one of the best in the league at avoiding sacks. But they haven't generated much pressure. And then on top of that, they just got absolutely torched today by the Seahawks. And they probably would have against the Chiefs if anyone on the team could catch the ball in the opener on Thursday Night Football. So I'm a little concerned about the Lions. I know they have a revamped defense. We can't really compare them too much to last year's because there are so many new faces. But should Lions fans be a little concerned about the defense to start the year?
I think you should be a little concerned. This is just a pretty poor defensive performance all around, right? The linebackers struggled to cover. The secondary had some really, really costly interference calls. The defensive line, as you said, wasn't able to get much pressure. They were able to do good against the run game, right? Kenneth Walker had a really good carry to start the game, and otherwise, I think he only got like 30 yards after that. Mm-hmm. He got a few touchdowns, but when you're like ramming it in the inside of Kenneth Walker from the one, you'll be okay.
Pause.
Yeah, look, I wish they would have gotten more sacks. I wish they would have gotten more pressures. I wish the linebackers could cover better. I wish the cornerbacks could avoid getting as many penalties. But it wasn't a meltdown.
No.
This wasn't bad enough to keep them out of the game. And all the Lions really need is the defense to play marginally better, make one or two more plays. And of course, the Lions fans are going to be talking about this. There was a really bad no holding call to end the game in overtime.
I was shouting it out.
Yeah, no, it was. So it's not as though like you put these numbers in, but it's not as though in the big moments players couldn't come close.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't think it's a little worrying. I would have liked to see them do a little bit more, but they've got games against the Falcons, Packers, Panthers, and Buccaneers coming up next. They have some time to fine tune things. I'm not super worried about the defense.
Okay. Yeah, completely fair. They had a couple calls that didn't go their way, a couple of those big turnovers. And last thing we'll wrap up with, Dan Campbell. We love him on this show. I'm a big Dan Campbell fan. I think he has a great approach. He's changing a team who are losers. The team has been losers forever. And Dan Campbell's come in, and it kind of feels cool to be a Lions fan for the first time in a long time. At least from the Lions fans that I've talked to, they're enjoying football. And that very rarely happens in Detroit. By now, you're 0-2, and you're like, all right, come on, Caleb Williams, let's beat out the Texans for this pick. And for as much fun as Dan Campbell has coaching, as risky as he is, sometimes it does come back to bite him today. Two big fourth downs you could look back on. There was a 4th and 4 from the Seattle 31-yard line. Detroit elected to go for it earlier in the game. No good. They could have kicked the field goal there. Later on in the game, perhaps a bigger one, 4th and 3 from their own 45-yard line. Pin Seattle deep. They elect to go for it. They don't get it. Seattle gets the ball back and winds up taking the lead 24-21 on that drive, because they were in great field position. So there's another thing with the Lions throughout the season that I bet will be a theme. Dan Campbell takes risks, and sometimes it pays off. I'm thinking about the Packer game last year, Week 18. Think about the Chiefs game earlier this year, or in Week 1. They go for it on 4th down really early in the game, backed up, and they get it. But then later in the game, they go for 4th down and don't, and so all of a sudden the Chiefs have the ball with a chance to win the game. Like, that's going to be a theme. It's going to be stressful for Lions fans. You just have to remember to pay attention to that because you have a coach with pretty big guts.
But I will say, so there's two things. One is Dan Campbell is the prince that was promised. He's sort of the guy to unify the analytics and the like football guts guys. Because he's obviously, when he comes out and talks about biting kneecaps, he's like one of those gutsy football guys.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
You can tell he goes for it when he should and he doesn't when he shouldn't. He's clearly listening to the numbers guy. Look, here's the thing that people, I think, sort of make mistakes on, is they overreact to aggressive plays failing and underreact to non-aggressive plays failing.
Yep.
Right? Nobody's talking about the Chargers punting it at 4th and 1 on the opponent's 44. Like, just an obviously bad, cowardly decision. No one's talking about that as part of why they lost, but everyone wants to come out and talk about Campbell's missed 4th down conversions. Look, the edge you get for going on 4th down is a couple percentage. It's a couple win points. It's not the sort of thing that's going to dramatically change things. And indeed, even if you make the good decisions, you should expect it to not work out a lot of the time. But he's making the right calls. You can run the numbers. It's the case. I have no problems of what he's doing.